Yo, what is crack-a-lackin' Ridge Runner Nation? I don't know about you guys, but our new intro makes you want to run through a wall. And honestly, there could have been about 50 walls out on the course at the Mohican 100 this past weekend, and it would have not slowed down tonight's guest. She won the Mohican 100 miler by 3.5 hours. Earlier this year, she took second at the Canal Corridor 100 miler. She's officially in the hunt for our Ohio's Ultra Runner of the Year award. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Melissa Surman, how's it going?
Hi, I'm doing fantastic. How about you?
Doing really well. We're super excited to kind of learn about your race this past weekend. Obviously, at the Mohican race, obviously the course is a little different. I'm super excited to kind of dive into that. Before we get
Mhm.
started with the deep dive of the race, what are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking San Pellegrino with a splash of lime.
I love it. I love it. For those of you that don't know, my name is Wesley Harden, and holding down the fort with me tonight is the newly engaged
Really?
JD3
Oh,
John Dolovaki III. How's it going, and what are you drinking?
Pretty good. Newly engaged. I mean, that's almost a couple weeks now. I guess it's still new.
congratulations.
Thanks.
It's my first show with you in a couple weeks, so
I
I
guess
could
it's true.
definitely drop that one out there.
Yeah. So I was out this evening and picked up a Brewdog holiday pack. And so it came with 6 mystery beers. And one of my mystery beers this evening was the Brewdog Nitro Jet Black Heart, which is a vanilla oatmeal milk stout. And so this is what I'm drinking tonight. It's pretty delicious. How about you, Wesley? I think I saw a standard can from you.
Yeah, it's really disappointing. I just was traveling back to Charlotte today, so just the Miller Lite just was in the fridge, didn't have time to run out today. But gonna dive into that in a little bit. You can find the show on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We have a Strava club as well, and our handle is at Ridge Runners on all platforms. Melissa, you just won one of the oldest 100 milers in the country. The Mohican 100 started in the year 1990. For those of you that you do not know, before we dive into the race, though, I want to learn about what it takes to actually become a champion. I bet there's a lot of hours that that you put in running before the race per se. Take me
Yeah.
back to how you first found running itself.
Well, I ran track in high school and for 3 years, and I ran cross country my senior year. But since then, I have not really been into running. I had 5 kids and was really busy doing that and just ran 3 miles here and there on the treadmill just to kind of decompress with having so many kids. And so in 2017, when my youngest was about to turn 4, I started running just about every day, just getting out of the house and running 4 or 5 miles, and really started loving it, and met my friend Sally, who ended up pacing me at Mohican, and she talked me into running the Flying Pig. So I ran the Flying Pig Marathon in 2018, and I was just obsessed with running by that point. So about a year ago, I learned what an ultra was. I still had never heard of an ultra, and I read that book, Born to Run. And so that was how I learned about ultra running and trail running. And I just decided I didn't want to be locked into any specific type of running, that I just want to run any kind of race, any kind of terrain, any kind of speed. And so I'm just trying things right now. I don't really know what my niche really is, but this past year with COVID, I think with the shutdown and everything, it kind of caused me to go crazy on my running. And I ended up running 800 miles in the month of May. And I've run 4,300 miles this year so far. So I went really nuts with mileage. Um, so that's why I'm happy to take this recovery time. But I truly feel that that's what helped me prepare for Mohican and for Canal Corridor. I was training for Boston earlier in the year, and then of course that got canceled. So I was thinking I was going to do this other marathon in July. So I was doing all this speed work and track work, and then that canceled. And then Hugh Patton reached out to me about Canal, and I'm like, well, I have all these miles under my legs. I might as well try it and see what happens. And I knew I wanted to do a 100-miler at some point. So, and I was just happy to run a race. So I hadn't run a race the entire year. So that was my first 100-miler. And so now I'm just trying to do what I can. I was registered for Mohican already. Back in June, I had registered for it. So I had already planned to do Mohican before I planned to do Canal.
Yeah, you
So that's
definitely
kind
do.
of how I got into it. It wasn't by choice, really. It was kind of like, well, I'm trying to run a marathon. I just want to run 26 miles. That's really it. But it just turned into ultra running for me.
Yeah, that's so unique, especially you deserve a little bit of a break as well with 4,300 miles under your legs this
Yeah.
year. I think John, Cam, and myself, if we added all of our miles together and then doubled it or tripled it, we'd finally reach 4,300 together. But that's just an awesome accomplishment in itself outside of the races alone. I kind of want to hear about your initial impressions, though, with ultra running. So obviously you said you kind of stumbled upon it. You ran the Rough Trail 50K in Kentucky in October 2019. You took ninth there, and then in December you ran the Falls 50 miler also in Kentucky and took first place there, fourth overall. So kind of like, what was those early ultra experiences like for you, and kind of how did they help set the base for Canal and Mohican?
Well, I went into it completely blindly because I didn't realize that there was such a variance in how hard the race could be. And I accidentally picked two of the hardest trail races that you could pick. So Rough Trail 50K is only about 30% runnable. So I got so frustrated in that race because I had to hike so much and there were so many stairs and um, I felt so slow. But I feel like that race perfectly set me up for Falls, which I also was a very difficult trail race, but I didn't know it at the time. I just blindly said, oh, I want to run a race in December. Let me just sign up for Falls. That race was really, really hard. And I think my first struggles were mostly fueling because I'm used to, you run a marathon. I don't fuel for a half marathon at all. And for a marathon, I take maybe 3 gels and I don't really fuel at all for a marathon very much. So I was trying that same approach and it wasn't working on ultra running. So I lost my stomach and got really ill at the end of the race and afterwards. And just all kinds of horrible things happened to me physically, but I finished. So I've been trying to learn more about proper fueling and things like that. So that was just my first initial battles that I had to face, but I'm getting better at it because I'm realizing that there's a huge difference in how you approach those things with ultra running versus road running.
Oh,
So yes, and those two races made Mohican seem easy. No offense, but I heard people complaining, no switchbacks and blah blah blah, and I'm just like, this isn't that bad. I mean, compared to Falls, it wasn't that bad. It was just longer. So it was just like doing Falls twice.
yeah.
So
That the terrain is always kind of different, obviously, at different races and whatnot.
yeah,
Kind of interesting to hear people's uh, like just opinions on how much vert is vert and like all the stuff that kind of goes into that.
yeah. And I run a lot of vert, but I do it all on the road. So I live in Cincinnati and we have Mount Adams, which we have hills that are like straight up. So I run those a lot. I'll get 3,000 feet of vert in a 13-mile run sometimes just on the road. So I love hills. So I'm used to hills, so that doesn't really bother me that much. But I'm glad I ran those hard trail races initially because I think if I had run easier ultras first, that um, I would have had a much more difficult time at Canal and at Mohican on my first 100 milers. So,
Definitely. And I think you kind of did that even earlier this April at the Vernal Equinox 12-hour race where you took first overall running 72 miles. You kind of got to open the legs up, I would assume, a little bit more at that race and
yeah, that
without
was
the vert for the
awesome.
first time in an ultra for you.
Uh-huh.
So kind of like, how did that kind of just compare to the previous two races and kind of going the other two races as well?
I loved it. I absolutely loved that 12-hour race. I was just running in circles. I had a little 2-mile loop that I found at Otto Armleder Park, and it was a flat 2-mile loop with a bathroom. And I just parked my car and had my little cooler, and I was alone all day, and I just had the best time. I mean, I just ran in circles all day, and it was flat. And I think that I'm well suited to that type of a race because I don't mind being alone. I don't mind running alone, and I don't mind running in circles. So I enjoyed it. Had a
That's
lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Before we dive into your Mohican full experiences and everything that kind of happened at that race, we just want to remind Road Runner Nation that if you have any questions for Melissa, drop those in the chat below and we will make sure to get to those as well. I want to hear all about Mohican. So kind of take me
Okay.
days leading up to Mohican and kind of just like the starting line and kind of like all the stuff that kind of happened early on in the race for you, just everything and all the stuff.
Well, sorry. I was really nervous about the race because starting in the middle of July, I started having some pretty serious IT issues where I could only run about 3 miles at a time. And then my whole side of my leg would just go out and it would just be excruciating pain. And I decided rather than not running, that I would run through it. And so every day it was a mystery of how far am I going to make it today before my leg goes out. So I would run 3 miles, maybe make it 4, maybe make it 10, but I never knew how long my run would be. And so it wasn't until the middle of September that I went out one day and I thought, if I can make it 26 miles without my leg going out, then number one, I'm going to count it as the Boston Virtual Marathon. And number two, I'm going to run Mohican. So that was my deciding factor. So I went out that day and I made it the 26.2 miles. So I said, I guess I can run Mohican because I made it that far. And my leg never went out again after that. And then I started having some other just weird stomach pains and things going on. So I was really nervous about doing Mohican. I didn't know if I would be able to finish. So the whole week leading up to the race, I was a mess, just emotionally worried about it and anxiety. And even on the way there, I was crying to my husband. I was like, I can't do this. I can't run 100 miles tomorrow. The longest I've run is 26 miles since July. And I didn't know how I would do it. I really felt like I needed a 40-mile training run. And I didn't get that. And so I was super nervous. But you know how it is. Once the race starts and you start running, everything, all the worries just go away. So as soon as I was able to finally start, it was like, okay, I feel better. This is just running. It's just running. That's all it is. I'm just going out for a really long run. And just like I always do. And I felt pretty good. And then I would say maybe at the marathon point, maybe 26, 28 miles in, I started aching real bad in my legs. And I thought, what the heck is this? What am I going to do? Because if this is already happening, there's no way I'm going to make it this whole race. And so I guess about 29 miles, we had a crew stop. And I stopped there and I took some Tylenol at the crew stop. And I'm like, I'm just going to keep going. I drank some body armor because the body armor helps me a lot. And I just decided I wasn't going to quit no matter what. So all day long, I battled that achiness in my legs, but I just kept taking Tylenol. I just kept drinking body armor. And I somehow just was able to ignore it. But I made it through. I think it's a mental decision you just have to make, and you have to mentally remove yourself from your body. It's like an out of body experience almost. When you get to that, I would say past the 40-mile mark, it becomes way less physical. You're literally outside of yourself and your body's just going, but your mind is what's really controlling you. It's really bizarre. But so that was how the early part of the race was. I actually liked the fact that there were roads mixed in with the trail because it gave me a chance to speed up a little bit and to kind of get my bearings, because I do love running on trails, but it's so much concentration to run on trails. You have to constantly be watching your steps so you don't fall. So it was nice to get that break on the roads and not have to really look down at all and just run, So that was nice. And I really loved that 10-mile bike trail stretch from 30 to 40. It was paved and flat. And I was like, this is really nice. I just really stretched out there. I was running in the eights, low eights, trying to get to Glenmont. So that was fun. And then that first trail loop, that was when I started hiking the hills. Was once we got to Glenmont and started that first 21-mile loop. Every time I'd come to a steep hill, I would just hike it. I'm like, I gotta save my legs a little bit. But the trail there was very well marked. I was very pleased. I never felt like I was going to get lost. They had good reflective ribbon, so I felt very secure, even being alone most of the time. And then I just kept thinking, okay, once I make it to the halfway point, then I know I got this in the bag. And everyone kept telling me the whole morning, oh, you're in first place, you're ahead, whatever. But I didn't even care about that. My main objective, I just wanted to finish. That was my main goal. And everything else was secondary to me. So I just knew if I could make it to the halfway point that I would be 100% no chance of DNF. I just knew that. So I get through that first loop and get back, and it's mile 61, and my friend Sally was there waiting on me, and it was just so great. She was so happy and just like ready to go, and she had this cute outfit on that was glow in the dark, and she just looked awesome. And I'm like, yes, this is just what I need, this mental boost. So we take off, and then she paced me, and I was so thankful to have her at the end because it got dark, of course, and there were coyotes. I don't know if anybody else talked about that, but there were coyotes all around. And so it was just a fun adventure. And of course, in the middle of the night, maybe around mile 80 or so, I don't know. No, it wasn't mile 80. It was after that. I started hallucinating a little bit. And I pointed up ahead. I'm like, Sally, do you see that guy leaning against that truck over there? And she's like, Missy, you are freaking me out. And then I saw a group of Amish people standing on the road, but they weren't really there. But I never had the thought like I never felt frustrated with the terrain, really. I just felt, I don't know. I can't explain it. I felt like I was just gonna finish, and it was just a job I had to do. And okay, I have this many miles left, and I'm just gonna go and clip away. And every step you take is one step closer to the finish. And I don't know what else you want to hear about, but the end of the race, at mile 93, I got to the mile 93 aid station with Sally. And Hugh Patton was there, and he said, Melissa, we have your drop bag here for you. It's right up front. And I asked him, I said, what's the rest of this race like? And he said, well, it's mostly Jeep road, flat. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to put my road shoes on. So I had worn my trail shoes all day, which, by the way, were brand new. I had never worn them before. They say don't do anything new on race day. I broke every ultra running rule. I did everything new. I tried new food. I tried new shoes. I did it all. So I broke all the rules, and it worked out. So don't be afraid to try something new on race day. So anyway, I changed into my fast shoes, but it was not flat after that. There were some huge hills, and I'm like, Sally, this is not flat. But so finally, at mile 95, I said I was getting frustrated at that point because I just wanted to go and get there. And I said, all right, Sally, I'm selling out now. Are you ready? We're going to sell out. And so we started, it felt like we were sprinting, but I looked at my watch and it was like 9:50s or something, but it felt like we were running 5-minute miles, because when your legs are so tired. Yeah. So we just took off and we saw this guy up ahead, and I hate to admit this, but I said, Sally, let's take his soul. And so she's like, okay. And so she starts running. Well, then my legs are just dying. I stopped and walked for a second and like regrouped. And then I'm like, okay, let's go. So it was a hill. We go up this hill. We passed him going up the hill, took his soul, left him in the dust. And then my watch clicks 100, no finish line. It's pitch black. And then we were starting to wonder if we had gone the wrong way, of course. And then I guess, I don't know, I guess with the Garmin maybe being a little off, it ended up being 102.79 miles before we finished. So I'm like cursing under my breath and like, when is this going to be over? But I loved having that finish and just deciding I wanted to finish strong. And so I made that decision. I didn't want to be limping it in or walking it in. I didn't care how bad it hurt. I was going to run that thing in. Go as fast. What I felt like was sprinting it in, which was probably like a very slow jog, but it felt like sprinting. So, but that was a little bit more than the beginning of the race, but I didn't know if there was anything else specific you wanted to know.
Yeah, no, that was an awesome deep dive. It's always kind of awesome to kind of hear the whole race and kind of just like everything that kind of culminates throughout the day that you kind of face there. I've got two quick things, kind of a two-part question here. What percentage of the course do you think was road versus trail this year? And then also, kind of like what was when you took the lead early on, did you kind of like ever think about like, oh, this person's 8 minutes back, or did you kind of just like love just making the gap just insurmountable for anyone to catch you?
Well, okay, I would say it was at least 50-50 road trail. If you count those gravel roads, which I do, I count that as road. So I would say at least 50-50. I felt like there was a lot more road in the beginning, the first 40 miles. I know there was about a 7-mile stretch at the beginning that was all road. And then we had a few miles of trail, and then it would be a few more miles of road, but it felt pretty even. I didn't feel like it was too much one or the other. So, of course, that 40 to 80 mile stretch is all trail, but the rest of it was kind of a mixture. So. But no, honestly, I think at first I felt some people right on my shoulder. The first maybe 13 miles. And I felt like there were people hovering, and I hate that feeling. Like at one point I even stopped and looked at somebody and I said, you want to go around me? Because I just don't like people to be on me, I want to be like, I want my personal space when I'm running. So that's one anyway. So that's but after that first aid station, or I guess it was the second aid station at mile 13 and a half. After that, I never had that feeling again. I took off, and then I felt like no one was back there. And then I know every time I would get to the next aid station, the lead that I had was getting bigger. But I hated to hear that, because I know that things can change at any moment, because they changed for me at Canal many times. And I don't really put any stock into anything that happens in an ultra before mile 80. But once I hit mile 83, that last cruise stop, I was so exhausted. I was opening a pack of run gum and I fell asleep mid-tear. And and Sally's like, Missy, you have plenty of time. You're way ahead. You can take a nap here if you want. And I'm just not the type of person to do that. But I thought, really my goal is to finish, and I'm going to finish. So I'm going to close my eyes. So I took a 10-minute nap, and I changed my clothes twice. I did all kinds of stuff. I was really pampering myself. But it helped me, I think, in the long run, because I didn't chafe. I didn't have any issues like that. And then I was able to finish strong. So I think maybe the 10-minute nap revived me a little bit. But so they were just, telling me, you have such a big lead, you can afford to take a nap. But I wasn't really thinking about that. I just wanted to finish. It was a great bonus to win. I never expected to win. Now, I'm going to be honest. I'm very competitive. I'm not going to lie. So I looked up every single woman that was registered for the race on Ultrasign. I'm not going to lie. I looked up everything, and I knew I could get top 3 based on what I saw. But I never expected to get first, ever. And I know that top 3 is only, if everything goes perfect, is what I thought. if everything goes perfect, I have a chance at top 3, but I was not there to get the win. So I just think it kind of depends on the kind of day the competition is having as well. You know, I had a really good race. I felt like everything went as perfect as it possibly could. And I know that some of the other ladies that were predicted to finish in top 5, I know that they had some troubles. And sometimes that just happens and you can't really do anything about it. So it kind of just depends on what's going on that day with everyone.
So of all the new
I
things,
feel very fortunate.
yeah, I would think, I would imagine so. It's to win would be probably pretty awesome, especially like when you weren't expecting it. Now, forgot what I was gonna say. I totally lost my train of thought. But we'll jump over to chat. There's a couple of chat questions over here. First, a couple of comments in the chat from Harry. Said, "This is my daughter, and she's a beast," and I think we would all agree with that. S
Hi,
Grunk.
Dad. I love you.
S Grunk is the username here, and
Oh,
says,
that's Sally.
Sally. She says, "Hi, Missy," and she says, "Do you prefer the longer distances in the heat, like at Canal, or cold, like Mohican?"
Well, I wouldn't consider Mohican that cold. I'm so thankful though that I had the hotties in my hands and my gloves, but it wasn't uncomfortably cold as long as you were running. Now I had a shivering spell at mile 80, and then I had a hot flash a few miles later. So I went from shivering to stripping my clothes off. A few miles later, stripping jackets off and things. But I don't know. I love running in the heat. The heat doesn't bother me, but this particular weather didn't bother me because it was dry. Now, cold and rainy, that bothers me, I think. But cool and dry is good. I think Mohican was the perfect running weather. Canal, I had a little bit of a heat bonk at the end of the day. Could have been for not eating for 13 hours. I'm so bad at people. But so I don't know. I'm not afraid of heat. I'm not afraid of cold. So I'll do either, but I'd never go into Antarctica ever. Don't ask me to do that. Or Alaska. Who are these people that go to Canada and run fat dogs? Those are not my people. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do it though. I wouldn't go somewhere very north. No. I'm just not made for that. But I'm looking more at Keys and Badwater and that kind of.
Badwater.
I'm with you. I'm with you on the warm weather.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree as well. So of all the things that you did that were new at this race that you're not supposed to try on a new race day, what would be maybe one of the ones you're going to use again? Like
Taking lots of Tylenol, ibuprofen. No, I avoid ibuprofen anyway in my life, but I took it twice at the end of the race, and it probably saved my legs. And then also wearing the new shoes, they felt so great and fresh all day and comfy and cushy. I didn't want to ever take them off. I never had the desire to change my shoes until mile 93. So that was a good choice. And then I ate a ton of food. And that was a big risk for me because I usually don't eat during races very much at all. I just do a few blocks or something. And I ate food all day. And I didn't know if I was going to start throwing up or anything. I didn't know what would happen, but it all worked out. So I think I'm going to do that from now on. Eat a lot.
So kind of jumping back a little bit, you kind of talked about how you looked up everyone's ultrasign up and whatnot. No, I could have honestly used your help because I had to do the same thing for the prediction video. And clearly I am really bad at these because I left you outside of the top 5 at Canal earlier this year.
You totally dissed me at Canal. I'm like, who is this guy? He dissed me. He didn't even know I exist.
That was really rough, and I that was probably just my bad there. But then I had you at second at Mo this year. I also missed that result there. So kind of, does that like fuel you at all, or like what is kind of like those things like when you see this some random guy dropping a prediction video on the race that you're going against you, you're just like, yeah, I cannot wait to prove him wrong.
Well, no, I will say I had a little chip on my shoulder from Canal because I feel like I could have won that race except for I had a ginormous bonk at mile 70 that set me back by about an hour. I passed, I almost passed out. I laid down on the side of the trail. I was laying there, like I can't get up. And my husband, I texted him, told him what was going on. And of course, with you weren't allowed to help your runner unless you were at the aid station. So I had about a 2-mile trek. So I finally peeled myself up off the ground, made it to the aid station, but it ended up setting me back quite a long time. And once I came out of that bonk, then I ran great the rest of the race. But I feel like, you always go back and say, if I had done this or if I had done this, I would have had this time or that time. I mean, I think I could have had a faster time. So I kind of went into Mohican with that, with the goal of just not letting that happen again. Like, I don't want something stupid to happen because I'm an idiot and I don't fuel enough, or I don't drink enough, or I just didn't want to make dumb mistakes. So I wanted my redemption for being dumb at Canal.
And the craziest part about, I guess, all of this is you still ran a very impressive canal race. I mean, you ran 18:59 there for second place. You only were second place to Tracy Falbo by 15 minutes. And you said you had an hour bonk there. So
She's a boss, by the way. She's amazing.
we had her on, I'm going to say RRLive 24. I have no idea if that's kind of just the guess I'm going off of right now. But we had her and Arlen on to talk about their race.
Oh, wow.
If anyone's interested in going to check that out, feel free to check that out as well. But kind of cool to kind of compare the two stories from the race that you guys had there. But I guess, like, what is the one thing from Canal that, I mean, you kind of talked about the bonking and whatnot, but did you just, like, not to totally collapse at Mohican, but kind of like, how did you go into it and just be like, okay, I just need to focus on going out there, really just from 80 on, really just finish strong? Like, did you even focus on the first 80 miles, or was it just all in the last 20 for you?
You mean for Mohican or Canal?
For Mohican.
For Mohican? No, I did focus. I was really focused on getting to that halfway point, like getting to the 50-mile point. And I felt like the first 50 miles were actually a little longer or maybe harder than the second 50, because I feel like once you get to the halfway point, the rest goes kind of fast. And then, of course, once I had my friend with me, that just boosted my morale a lot. And I had her there to just keep me company, and it went faster. So, but I do think that it never really felt like a race. I mean, I hate to say that. It just felt like a really long run, because I didn't feel like there was anyone close to me, and it could just be because of the staggered start, the way that we had to start and everything. But I felt like we were just running alone most of the time. So I think had I had another female competitor right there, it would have felt different at mile 80. It would have felt like, okay, we really got to go, So I look forward to experiencing that sometime. I think maybe after COVID's over and all that, might have more of that.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I think that'll be awesome for you to kind of go out there and you hopefully just take someone's soul again, like you did that one guy in that.
And I hate to say that, but Sally and I, we were just so slap happy by that point, and it was a guy, and we just were like, let's show him how girls run and all this. And I mean, we were just being goofy, so we were just having fun. But to be able to have fun at mile 98 of an ultra is pretty amazing. So to be able to still be laughing at all. But I still say the longest miles were from 100 to 102. I'm like, where is the finish? People. So.
Yeah, just any extra mileage on top of 100, you're just not about it. And I'm with you. I always kind of feel like anything kind of on the bonus side, unless I know going into it exactly like what it is, then I kind of set my mind on it. But if I think it's exactly 100 and it's 104, I'm screaming at everyone for the next hour, because it's a long time for a lot of people, especially if you're kind of in the middle of the pack or even at the back of the pack. That could be an hour to an hour and a half, and a lot of people maybe don't realize that when they're setting races. So
it can be a long time.
I always kind of like that transparency going into races and whatnot, which I'm not sure if Mohican had or whatnot, but
Well, and
on
I
the
had
race
never
too.
run for, I had never run that long before because I've only done one other 100 and it only took 18:59. So I had never run almost 24 hours before. That was my first time. But I'm really glad I had that experience because I really want to do a 24-hour event. And now I know I can last 24 hours. So that it was every race is training for the next race, you know. So it's kind of neat if you look at it that way.
I think that's just an awesome mentality to have, especially because I know you have some monster goals, obviously still on the lined up for next year, and kind of when stuff kind of gets resumed to what normal life was. I kind of want to talk about, say, what a 24-hour event. Obviously, you had that experience of running 72 miles at a 12-hour event. How far do you think you could go? How fast do you think you go at like a 24-hour timed event versus say a canal race?
Well, I can tell you how fast I want to go. I want to do at least 130 miles. But so I want to find one that's on a really flat track, you know, like even a high school track, just lots of little circles, and just go, 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 go. I would love to be able to hit that 130 mark or more. You know, I mean that's dreaming, but I never thought I'd be winning 100 miler, so I might as well say, hey, I mean, why limit myself? You know, at this point,
Definitely, definitely.
I might as well try.
Do you have any specific races that you think this could happen at, or just kind of like big high in the sky goals for now?
Well, I kind of looked at across the years, but then they canceled. And so I don't know yet. It's kind of in the back of my list of things I want to do right now because I really have some other goals that are I want to do first. Uh, so, but I don't know. I haven't done enough research into those events to know which one would be a good one. If I could find one where it was dry and about 45 degrees and flat and or you know like a nice rubbery surface, then that would be the ticket. So I'll
Well, if
be
you're
looking for that.
well, if you're a race director that puts on one of those races, make sure you reach out to Melissa so you can make sure to get her at
Yes,
your
reach out to me.
so she
I
can
want to
go
run your event.
crush your event and do absolutely awesome. I kind of want to know a little bit about your future goals. You kind of hinted at it a little bit, but obviously after a Mohican win, it's kind of, I'm assuming there's a lot of time to kind of step back and evaluate, okay, what do you want to do next? Kind of what does the next couple months look, or maybe even in the next year, like for you goal wise?
Well, it's kind of depends on what happens with COVID and the races. So if things are able to resume, I would like to shoot for a spring marathon, and I really want to go sub 3. So if I'm able to do a marathon in the spring, I wouldn't do anything else between now and then. I would save myself completely for that because I really feel like trying to run a marathon at a fast pace like that, you really can't be running ultras in the meantime while you're training for something like that. You really have to save yourself for it. So my thoughts right now, I don't plan to run any more races this year. I plan to just run, enjoy it, get strong and fit, you know, and then start really ramping up my training again in January for hopefully a marathon. But if not, then there's a few hundreds I have on my radar that I'm kind of looking at too. I'm registered for the Strolling Gym 40 miler in May, but I kind of registered for that on a whim and then they canceled it and deferred me to next year. So it's not like my A race. It's something that's on my calendar, and I have another marathon on my calendar for July of next year. But I really would like to run one in the early spring if possible, like April or if the flying pig could happen, then early May. That's what I really, really want to do.
I feel like
I
that's
feel like once I get that out of my system, I really just feel like I need to get that out of my system. And once I do, I feel like I'll be able to just run all kinds of races and not care. But I feel like I really have to get that done. That's just something I really want to do.
I think it's kind of like that's just like I feel like it's important because I feel like everyone has their different running goals and kind of what inspires them on the day to day and in the training. And they kind of you have this one overarching thing that you want to get done. I think it's super important to kind of go out and focus all your energy towards, say, a marathon, even though you're winning 100 milers or whatnot. You can always come back to the 100 mile scene and the ultra scene after you obviously go out and crush the marathon. So I think that's actually pretty inspiring to kind of know what you want and kind of just how you're going to go chase down that
Oh, thank you.
But kind of going off of that, so you've had a monster year of training. So you, like you said, you've had 4,300 miles of running this year. Looking at kind of the marathon goal for next year, how does that compare mileage wise? Do you think you're still going to do that amount of mileage, or do you think you'll kind of tone it back, do a little more speed work, or kind of what is your philosophy for kind of training for a marathon specific program?
Based on my performance this year, when I was training for the Boston Marathon, I was putting in my training maxed out about 105 miles a week, or 120. I think 120 might have been my biggest training week for Boston. So, and it would go anywhere from that 70 range up to low hundreds for that. And then I ended up just running a virtual flying pig and then ran over a marathon a day in May. But so I think in January, when I go back to that kind of training, I don't really want to run more than 100, 120 a week. Just because I feel like with marathon training, there's this from 70 to 100 seems to be that sweet, perfect range of mileage. I think if you put too much miles, it slows your pace down. If you start, because I was putting in like 200-mile week, and my pace was just getting slower and slower, So I feel like there's this sweet spot that you need to stay in, where you're going to be efficient and fast, but yet get the mileage, to get you strong and build that base up. So I still definitely want to do high mileage. It's not. I don't think I want to do 4,300 miles.
Yeah, that's crazy. That you just.
I mean, I wasn't training for anything. I was just running.
Which is the joy about it, right? A lot of times we need that goal to run for something, but to just go out and run that many miles just because is really nice.
Well, and then I just got so tired of training really hard and doing all these intervals and doing all these tempo runs, and then my marathon was canceled. So it was just getting so frustrating. And so it was kind of nice to run in that 800-mile month. I was doing that for the Great Virtual Race Across Tennessee. I don't know if you heard of that. I ran across Tennessee 3 times in the course of that race, but I was doing it for that, and I didn't give any thought to my pace really that entire month. I just ran, and that was kind of nice. But I really prefer running fast, and I kind of prefer running without looking down. So I kind of prefer running on roads right now, but I definitely see more trail running in my future for sure. I definitely want to keep doing it.
Now, for that 800-mile month, did you just eat everything in sight? Because that's a lot of calories to burn.
I ate about 2 breakfasts every morning and lunch and dinner, and I probably just ate all the time. I was always hungry. I know that. So I was always.
Were those double days? Like I would assume they.
Oh yeah,
okay.
I run doubles anyway. Even when I'm training for a marathon, I run doubles twice a week. So I do doubles usually on Mondays and Fridays, and then on my easy days, like I'll do an easy 10 in the morning and then another 5 or 4 in the evening. So I'm used to doubles, but yeah, in May I was doing doubles and triples. So I was doing, because I even took several rest days in May and still got 800 miles, and even with like 4 or 5 days off completely. So there were some days I ran 40 miles and some days I ran a marathon. I always try to get at least a marathon in. sometimes I would do the whole marathon at once. Sometimes I would start with 20 in the morning and then go out and do 10 again later that night, or I would do 10, 10, 10. It was hard to do this 3 times a day because it felt like all you did was run that day. And I never took my running clothes off. Like I would go run, come home, put on like different running clothes, and then just go. I was always like in that state of being ready to go for the run, in that whole month. And I always looked tired. Every picture of me, I look disgusting. I look so dead. I just look exhausted. So we went on vacation during that time. I don't remember the vacation because I ran the whole vacation. And it was crazy. But it was also fun.
That's just incredible. I don't even have any. I don't even know how to to put that into perspective for myself.
I
It's
don't think. Well, if it weren't for COVID and the quarantine and life being, and my husband didn't work for about 4 months, so he was around to, make sure the kids didn't die or whatever. So I knew that they had supervision, so I could just go out and get all these runs done. And but yeah, the circumstances were set up perfectly for that to happen, and I don't know if I would ever have that opportunity again. So I just kind of took advantage of it.
It's wild.
You just have to do things when they fall in your lap. You can't not do something out of fear, and you just have to take chances and take risks. And I took a risk doing Mohican. I thought I'm going to go out there, my IT's going to go out, my stomach's going to give out because I've been having these weird stomach issues. And I just thought, I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to face my fear, and it's going to make me stronger. So I just think if you get the opportunity to do things and take risks and overcome fears that you have, you should do it. Because I was really afraid too to run through the night. I had never done that before. And that's exactly why I went ahead and did it, because I needed to face that and overcome it. And so now I'm not afraid anymore. So it's just kind of cool. I feel like ultra running, one thing about it is it's made me much more confident and a lot less fearful of everything, of just being who I am and of, weird things. But
some motivational words right there.
I think, it does. It makes you a much stronger person.
Mm-hmm. The overnight part, did you end up enjoying that? Or would you not prefer?
Yeah. I liked it.
Yeah, I think it's very like a almost blissful kind of thing because you can't really see very far. You're focused very intently on like a small area. But it's a lot easier, especially like when there's a race going on, because there's other people around versus doing it like by yourself. But on the course, though, we'd have a couple shorter questions that I wanted to ask for you. What was your favorite snack or meal on the trail?
So I was so worried about getting enough potassium and getting enough carbs without hurting my stomach. So I made up this recipe of, I took potatoes, cooked them, and mashed them up with no butter or anything, just mashed up potatoes with tons of salt and tons of dill relish, and put that inside of a tortilla and made like a burrito out of it. And then I even made my own tortillas out of potatoes. So it was like a total, like, portable mashed potatoes that you could hold in your hand and grab and go. And I bought this little lunchbox that you plug into your car. So I would tell my husband, have me a burrito ready in 3 hours or whatever, like when I was going to see him next. So I ate about 3 of those burritos throughout the day. And it was just like the perfect thing for sodium, potassium, and carbohydrates. So that was my favorite thing probably. And then I had some ramen noodle soup and a rice ball at mile 93. That was really good. And the aid stations had great things. I drank Coke, which I never do. I never drink Coke, and I've never drank Coke during a race. And I drink a Coke at every aid station.
Yeah, it's really good.
I loved it. I'm like, see, I tried something new, and now I will always drink a Coke at an ultra.
What was your favorite moment of trail magic?
Trail magic. So I do think it was beautiful how we had the full moon. So there were some points where you would go out, you would be in the woods on the trail, but then it would open up into this grassy type of clearing, and it was grass trails, and it was just open sky above you. And that was probably my favorite part of the trail because it was just full moon above you, and you could just see everything. You could see what the landscape would look like if it were daytime. But I, that was probably my favorite part, just the full moon and enjoying that. It was beautiful.
Definitely a special thing about this year that just, I mean, there's so many things, aspects about this year at Mohican 100 that just maybe will never be replicated again with maybe the full moon or the road, half trail, or the October day that you guys had, which was perfect weather and whatnot. So a couple awesome aspects there. We just want to take a quick break here, and we want to give Melissa a chance to catch her breath. But while we do that, we want to mention that if you haven't hit the subscribe button on YouTube, what are you guys doing? Take 3 seconds, hit the subscribe button for us. To really help us out a little bit. So Melissa, I don't know if you know this, but we do have a Spotify playlist. It's called Tunes of the Nation, and we always ask people if ultra running had walk-up songs like baseball, what would your walk-up song be? And your answer is going to be added to that Spotify playlist. So no pressure.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That is so cool. I feel so honored. Well, it's hard to choose, but I will have to tell you the story behind it before I tell you. So when I was running my first Flying Pig marathon, I really struggled at the end and got really sick and had to go to the medical tent. I finished, but it was rough. So my second one, I wanted to train well and I wanted to finish well. And so I was meticulous in my playlist. I made this playlist and I knew what time I wanted to finish it. And I made my playlist that exact amount of time. And so I'm kind of a weird person. So anyway, I'm on my playlist, and sure enough, I turned the corner from Pete Rose Way onto the straightaway where you're headed to the Roebling Bridge, about to finish, and this song comes on. And it's the last song on my playlist, and it just pumped me up so much to hear that come on, and I had a very strong finish and felt so great. And so that song was The Battle of Yorktown from Hamilton. And if I listen to that song, it pumps me up anyway, because it's just such a motivational story. I don't know if you're familiar with the musical, but I love that. It's my favorite musical. And I'm a music person, so I love musicals and they speak to my heart. And that song was the last song on my playlist, and it was playing as I finished my Flying Pig marathon, and it's been on my playlist ever since. So that's my one.
Well, now it's going to be on our playlist as well.
Lucky you.
So it's a very wide variety of music on this playlist from all the guests that we've had.
Oh, yeah.
It's awesome. So putting it on shuffle is kind of interesting because you're like, what? We just went from what genre to what genre? But,
it's awesome. It's awesome.
If you could run with one person in history, even if they aren't a runner or alive anymore, and they say they could keep up with you at your pace, wherever you wanted to do, who would you run with?
I would run with Ann Tracy. That's an easy answer.
It's a good choice.
I just think she's my running idol, which I know it didn't have to be a running person. I mean, I run with Jesus every day. He's always with me. But she's like who I would like to be as a runner. So I would love to run with her and just get all of her tips and tricks and see her attitude and how she approaches things.
What's the one thing that you kind of like this just like about her that kind of just is like, wow, I want to steal that aspect, or like just want to add that to my life?
She didn't care what other people were doing. She wasn't on Strava. She just ran because she wanted to run, and she just did her own thing her own way, and she won just naturally as a result of that. And of course she was competitive and wanted to win, but I just love the fact that she was a natural runner. She wasn't motivated externally. It was more intrinsic motivation. so many people now, if it's not on Strava, it didn't happen, or, we got to show everybody what we're doing. And I keep my Strava private, and I don't even look at Strava. I mean, it's on there, but I rarely look at it. And so I have a lot of respect for the old school ultra runners before they have the fancy watches and all the fancy. Well, and you realize you don't need all the fancy equipment and all the fancy stuff that we have nowadays. Like, I went to Leadville in September, and part of the reason why I wanted to run up Hope Pass, which is part of the Leadville 100 course, because I wanted to run the same path that Ann Trace had ran, and just maybe feel what she felt during that race. And so I intentionally didn't take anything. I didn't take anything fancy at all. I had a bottle of water in my hand. It wasn't even a handheld. It was like a Kroger brand bottle of water. And I ran up Hope Pass and got to the top. And I was just like, see, you don't need all that stuff. And you can just run and just be a natural runner. And it was just an awesome, breathtaking moment for me to be up there. And I don't know, when I get up there, I feel like I get closer to God, because I look around and I see all the beauty in our world, and I just think, yes, there is a God here, And then I imagine all the runners who have run that same path across the mountain and back down the other side, and it was just really neat. But they didn't have all the things that we have now.
Mm-hmm.
And they did it well. So, anyway, I would like to learn what it would be like to be that kind of a runner.
That's interesting. Your dream race.
You're like, that's interesting.
Well, I mean, it is. And when you think about like running without stuff, like some of the best runs I've ever had, like have been when I forgot my phone or it died. And
Right.
it was just no music, no books, no audiobooks, just your breath and your steps, like crunching in the leaves or in snow or whatever it was. And so there's there's a level of being in tune with that kind of stuff that's nice. And there's also the level of like where somebody who is like into mathematics like myself, that I enjoy the numbers and the analysis of stuff to it. So I definitely can see it.
I skip count when I run uphill. I skip count when I run uphill. You might appreciate that as a math.
Yeah.
Oh wait, break that down for me. How does that work exactly? Like just like counting the steps on the going.
I count by sevens. I'll count by eights. I'll just count by all different numbers. And then I've run to a metronome many times to set my cadence. So I appreciate that he was kind of a mess.
Wait. So like you start by like 7, 14, 21, 28, or do you the 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yes.
The
No,
sevens?
I count by 7.
Whoa,
Yeah.
my!
When I'm running uphill. I don't know why I do it. It just always happens when I'm running up hills. I start skip counting, and it might be 7s, it might be 3s.
Leslie's head's gonna explode.
just 1 second. If someone passed me at a race and they were like, "I'd say 63."
I don't do it out
70,
loud.
77.
It's in my head. It's in my head.
I would just lose my soul would be actually gone. You would actually just take it, and that's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah.
We never had that happen on the show, so I'm just super curious.
Well, that's because I homeschool my kids, and we skip count all the time, and so I always have that stuff stuck in my head. So it comes out when I'm running for some reason. So
That's awesome.
It's a good way to memorize it even better. Like practice it
Yeah.
while you're running.
Yeah, because you're doing the kinesthetic learning thing along with it.
Mm-hmm. Your dream race. I think you've talked about this a couple times in a couple different scenarios. What would be your dream race that you would want to go accomplish?
Well, I think it would be really cool to achieve my marathon goal at the Flying Pig, just because I'm very sentimental about my hometown. I love Cincinnati, and I love Ohio. And so I just feel so privileged that I got to run Ohio's Ultra and win it. It just feels like such a wonderful honor to me as someone who loves being in Ohio. And I would love to be able to do that with our city's marathon. It's probably a little beyond my grasp, but I could at least achieve a PR there, I'm hoping. So that's kind of my dream, even above. I mean, I was supposed to run Boston this year and New York City, and I do want to run those races, but they don't hold. I haven't done them yet, so I don't have that attachment to them like I do Cincinnati Marathon. So, and then as far as ultras, I have, it's hard to say because they're all so different. For trail ultra, I would love to run Leadville 100. I went to Colorado and fell in love with that place. I absolutely love Leadville. And I would also like to run Badwater. So I love California and I love running on the road and I love Death Valley. So um, it's just hard to pick one because they're all so different. But those are just ones that I've thought about that I actually plan to pursue.
Yeah, you have to like try to connect with Harvey on his advice for Badwater.
Yeah.
He has got a lot of skill down there
Oh my goodness.
with his FKT.
I can't imagine. That's an undertaking for sure.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, all the stuff you've read about it, and especially like I think Dean's books talk about it, and like just the heat and having to like do the coffin-sized ice baths and wearing all white, running on the white lane,
Yeah.
like part of the road because your shoes start to melt. Like that just blows my mind if that's a thing. So.
Oh. Hey, but the air's dry, right?
It is
Can't hurt
dry.
you.
So got another question from Josh Surman. He said,
Oh, that's my husband.
I was figuring that was going to be him. And he says, what are the most important things you need from your crew during ultras?
Oh my goodness. Burritos when I say I want them and Lara bars. No, I'm just kidding.
I feel like there was a
No,
moment when
but
burritos
you
weren't
know
there.
what? When you get to your crew station and you're looking forward to having this certain thing and you really need it and then they don't have it, you do just want to cry. Like that happened to me. There was something, I think I don't remember what it was, something like a Lara bar or something. I needed something to eat. And he was going to give me like candles or like candy. He's like, here, but do you want some candy? And I'm like, no. And so I remember I wanted to cry after that. I took off and I almost cried. But that's because you just feel so wore out anyway during an ultra. But yes, your crew, they just need to be able to predict what you will need without you telling them. So they need to know, okay, she's going to need trail toes and fresh salt, or I don't know. I think he does a pretty good job of crewing me. I mean, he obviously did a great job this past weekend, or I wouldn't have had the outcome that I did. So he was really great and patient, because I'm pretty intense when I'm in the middle of a race. So he does pretty good, helping me out and always having what I need.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine anyone would be pretty, tense when they're in first place. Like, I just want to keep running.
Well, I'm just always that way. It doesn't matter so much what place I'm in. I take it very seriously. I don't want to offend anybody when I say this, because I just don't want to be out there that long. Okay? No, I don't understand people that hang out at the aid station. I'm sorry. That's making you have to be out there even longer. Like, do you not understand? Like, if you don't get going now, you're going to be out there even longer. And so my thought is always grab and go, like, because you don't want to be out there longer than you have to, right? Do you enjoy running longer than you have to run?
That's a debatable question. I mean, if you enjoy running,
it's
then sure.
No, but 100 miles, though. It's a finite distance,
Mm-hmm.
okay? It's a finite distance, and your goal is to get there as fast as you can, right? So why are you at the aid station for 30 minutes just sitting there by the fire? I don't know.
Well, even like
That's
say
just
just yeah, I mean, I'm all with you. Even like it's say 10 minutes per aid station. Say there's 10 aid stations at a
yeah,
race. That's 140 minutes, I believe. And so like that's or 100 100 minutes, and like that's almost an hour.
right.
It's over an hour and a half time spent. So if you were gonna go sub 24, then you're already at 25, 40 and whatnot. So the clock does add up.
It
At
really
that
adds up
point.
easy.
So, to be fair to Josh, though, I do want to give him a little respect because he did try to give you candy on Halloween. I feel like that's a pretty.
Oh, he was very good to me and very patient with me, and I really do appreciate. I couldn't have done the race without him. There, I couldn't have done it on my own. So I was very thankful for trusting me.
Definitely. We do
Very
have
thankful.
one final question here in the chat, and it's from Sally, and you kind of alluded to this, so I think I know your answer. But she said, "What about the Barkley marathons? You could be the first female to finish."
What, Sally? You're crazy. There is nothing about Barkley that I'm attracted to at all. Um, I don't navigate well, so I would not make it one loop of Barkley. I'm not even gonna pretend like I have Barkley material. Now, big backyard, maybe, because that's just a loop. You won't get lost, right? But Barkley, you have to navigate and um, climb through thorns, and that just doesn't sound very fun. But Sally, you're hilarious. Oh gosh, yeah.
So for our listeners here, before we close out, that want to follow you, can they find you on social media anywhere to give you a follow?
Oh man, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram just under my name, Melissa Surman. So yeah, you can follow me.
Mhm. As always, we want to say thanks to everyone for joining us this evening. We'll put all those links in the description below for everyone to go follow. It's easy to find. Thank you all so much for tuning into this Ridge Runners Live episode. My name is John Dolovecki. The other host this evening was Wesley Harton. Our guest, obviously, was the 2020 Mohicans 100 Women's Champion, future Flying Pig winner, potential future Ohio's Ultra Runner of the Year, Melissa Surman. So thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
If you are all running, if anyone's running the inaugural Rim to River 100 this weekend, we will see you there. Come say hi to us. We can't wait to meet all of you down in West Virginia. We will see you all next week, and goodbye, everybody.